Hello, and welcome to the third and final Oracy CPD session. Before we start, please ensure you have your reflection card to hand. If you don't have a printed version, this can be a digital or handwritten version instead. We will be completing this as we go through the session. Over the last year, the Department for Education have been conducting a curriculum and assessment review. When this was launched, it was stated that the review seeks to deliver a curriculum that ensures children and young people leave compulsory education ready for life and ready for work, building the knowledge, skills and attributes that young people need to thrive. This includes embedding digital, Oracy and life skills in their learning. This suggests there will be an increased emphasis on Oracy in the curriculum as an essential life skill. Take the first 5 minutes of today's session to discuss this. What are you hoping to see in the curriculum review report? Have you seen any recent news articles on Oracy? Have you noticed any changes in spoken language skills in recent years? Pause the recording here to have a discussion about your initial thoughts with those seated near you. Now on to our objectives for this afternoon. In our last session, we looked at exploratory talk, including the Harkness model and discussion prompt. To build on this session focuses on the practical ways to engage students in discussion within the classroom. We will identify the barriers to classroom talk, develop a toolkit of Oracy activities, celebrate successes from within the trust, and share effective practice from schools outside of CLP. Throughout the session, your in-school facilitator will give you time to try out some of the activities for yourselves and also give you time to reflect on how these activities could be adopted into your own classroom practice. Now, we have all heard of the 30 million word gap. The original claim was that children in some predominantly white, highly educated, middle-class families in the US had been exposed to 30 million more words by the time they started school, and that this correlated with language development and eventually school achievement. Others push back to say the original research focused too much on child-directed speech, and that children from disadvantaged African American families got a speech diet just as rich, but with more overheard adult-directed speech from multiple speakers. The most recent research seems to support that yes, there's not actually a huge gap in the words that children have heard if you include those overheard conversations. But what really counts is the quantity and quality of conversational turns that a child has. In other words, you can talk to a child as much as you like, but what really counts are the serve and return interactions whereby students listen and respond. Functional MRI scans show greater brain activity in these interactions compared with other forms of speaking and listening. So as educators, we have a role in facilitating high quality conversations. But how do we do that? Particularly when the very children who would benefit from this usually don't speak up or disengage during talk tasks. For our first activity, we're going to think specifically about these children, the ones who don't speak in class. We're going to use a think, pair, share approach. On your reflection card, you'll have 4 minutes to list 8 reasons why this could be. You need to be thinking about your own classes and your own lived experience. You'll then have 4 minutes with the person next to you to identify what you think are the 3 most common reasons. Your facilitator will then select people to share their ideas with the room. Research shows us that these are some of the reasons why children don't speak in class. I'm sure you've listed similar reasons, and most probably even more. If we want to increase the number of serve and return interactions, we need to overcome these barriers. So today, I'm going to share some activities that aim to do just that. The first technique I'm going to share is called using small talk before big talk. When did you last have a meeting where the very first thing that you spoke about was the subject of the meeting? It's quite rare, yet when we ask students to work in groups or turn and talk, we don't usually leave space for small talk to take place. Now, by small talk, we don't mean talking about the weather or what's for lunch, but a less mentally challenging question before you get them talking about the main topic. At the start of this session, I asked you to discuss whether you'd heard about Oracy in the news and your thoughts on the curriculum review. It was a broad, low-stakes question where hopefully you didn't feel under any pressure to say the right thing or to structure your ideas in the right way. Now, doing this with your class will take up lesson time, but it's worth investing the time if this leads to more effective dialogue in the classroom. Doing this will relax the class, make sure everyone's engaged, defines the group, breaks the ice before you get into that big talk. In the geography example given, students are getting the chance to speak about films, finding out about one another. Others are more likely to listen if it's a question that engages them. It's less intimidating to speak about, and there's nothing here really to disagree with. It overcomes those common barriers by being low stakes, but offering lots of opportunities for conversational turns, that serve and return that I mentioned. On a psychological level, once the big talk begins, students have already connected over their experiences. Even if their contribution is as limited as, I haven't seen any films about earthquakes, I prefer to watch crime dramas, then at least they've shared something about themselves and they've warmed up to having more detailed conversations. For activity 2, you're going to have the chance to think, to pair, but we're going to hold off on the share for now. The think task is to fill in the second box on your reflection card that is titled, How could I use small talk before big talk? And make sure to give an example, please. Then you'll have a chance to share your ideas with the person next to you and to discuss whether any adaptations could be made to make the activity suitable in a different subject, a different year group, or with a different topic. Pause here. The second technique we're going to look at today is called snowballing. This can be used to slowly support those who don't want to speak in front of a large group. It gives them the opportunity to practice growing in confidence, and this can be combined with the principles of small talk before big talk. First, pupils discuss a small talk question in pairs, before then speaking as a group of 4 and then as a group of 8. This can build to presenting to a group of 2, then 4, then 8. Now, if you're not somebody who loves public speaking, then you tend to hate it and there is no in between. However, if we go back to the aim of the curriculum review, to deliver a curriculum that ensures young people leave education ready for life and ready for work, having the confidence to speak in front of a large group is a valuable life skill. And although it's possible for our students to avoid jobs and opportunities where public speaking is required, why would we want our students to have this restriction? We want to remove this limitation for our pupils, particularly for those pupils who may be disadvantaged and under-resourced in other ways. Now this brings us on to activity 3. Activity 3 is another think, pair, share activity. I'd like you to take some time on your own to fill in the third box on your reflection card, which says, How could I use snowballing? This time, consider which groups you would want to particularly target with this support. Is there a particular cohort, a particular gender group that you've noticed that could really benefit from being more confident in speaking in front of a large group? Once you've done that, you'll get a chance to share the ideas with the person next to you and to give your reasoning. Finally, your in-school facilitator will pick some people to feed back to the room on how you could use small talk to feed into big talk, and/or which groups would benefit from this snowballing technique. The third approach I'm going to share is called Talk 3 Times. This principle is particularly important for EAL learners at a foundational level to aid confidence and familiarity with vocabulary and grammatical structures. It is simply asking the same question 3 times, with thinking time or a talk task in between. The first time that a question is asked, pupils will be exploring, getting their first thoughts together and recalling prior knowledge. Asking a question for a second time allows them to elaborate on these first ideas. Asking for a third time means they've had the opportunity to identify the best way to express their ideas, considering structure and the vocabulary used. In the example given, small talk has been included first. Then, the same question is asked 3 times in groups of different sizes, with the final time being during a discussion or a debate. Alternatively, this could take on a think, pair, share approach, or the same question could be asked and answered 3 times during the lesson or unit, which links in with the big question approach that some of our schools have. This repetition is not a waste of lesson time. It's practice, and we know from research into metacognition that repeated exposure to informational skills strengthens neural pathways. It improves recall and solidifies knowledge. With this in mind, please pause here to complete box 4 on your reflection card. For the final activity today, we're going to look at co-coaching questions. One of the reasons many teachers do less paired work than is optimal is that it's hard to be sure that quality talk is happening in all of the pairs. In a whole group discussion, we can push for depth in their responses and encourage children to elaborate on their answers. But you as the class teacher can only facilitate one discussion at a time, and that's not going to provide enough serve and return interactions to diminish the Oracy gap, which we spoke about at the beginning of this session. We need to work smarter, not harder, and this is where co-coaching questions come in. These are questions that students can use to push one another's thinking deeper. On the left-hand side of the slide, you can see I've included generic questions, but you can adapt these to suit your context. This is a paired task whereby one person answers the question posed and the other prompts them to elaborate further. The rules are up there now on the right-hand side of the slide. The teacher poses a question, then one student in each pair is the coach and the other person is answering the questions. As the next step, we then display the questions to the left so that the coach can see them. The coach asks the substantive question and the answerer gives their initial answer. After that, the coach's only job is to ask the questions to deepen the answerer's thinking. Questions can be reworded, reused, asked in any order, or the coach can come up with their own questions. After this, they swap roles. So now it's your turn. You're going to have a chance to practice using the co-coaching questions. With the person next to you, decide who is going to be the coach. And the coach needs to ask the question that is on the board. Coming back together now, you'll have seen that for those children who run out of things to say, this activity provides a scaffold in the form of the coach. The benefit of using the same generic questions each time is that students begin to preempt the answers to them, which leads to them thinking more deeply. The question that I gave you was to develop the skills of reasoning and justifying. However, you could also use questions linked to your curriculum topics, and the co-coaching questions themselves could be adapted or reduced for younger children. Consider how this can be used in your context and complete box 5 on your reflection card. Before we close, I would like to dedicate some time to sharing and celebrating what our schools are doing within the Trust to support Oracy. Boswell's School have invested in a Year 7 transition workshop for their new students. The workshop aims to build positive relationships, boost confidence, and develop Oracy skills whilst linking the curriculum learning to careers. This workshop prepares students for secondary school and establishes high Oracy expectations from the beginning. We're excited to see how this goes and whether it would be worth investing in this workshop for each of our secondary schools next year. Our Lakelands colleagues have begun their Voice 21 training. So far, they have looked at the 4 strands of the Oracy framework and begun to look at strategies for developing the different skills, such as reasoning, which is part of the cognitive strand. To develop these skills, Voice 21 suggests using springboards to promote talk, using activities such as which one does not belong and would you rather. But the real power of these activities lies in the student talk tactics. They're displayed on the right-hand side of the screen. These are sentence stems which pupils can use to challenge and probe each other's ideas. Looking outward to effective practice in other schools, I've recently visited the Westlands Community Primary School in Chelmsford. This is an Oracy School of Excellence. They've created a progression document which ensures that Oracy is woven into their curriculum from reception to Year 6. This is available on their website and via the link on the screen. I have also visited the Quilters Infant and Junior Schools in Billericay. They have also had a whole school focus on Oracy. They've used the Communicating the Curriculum document, which describes progress for their pupils in spoken language and also identifies triggers for any concerns about attainment or progress in this area. This is available via the link on the screen. As well as this, Quilters have allocated sentence stems to each year group to ensure that pupils are confident in using a set range of phrases that allow them to reason, express opinions, and explain. Now a resource for our EYFS colleagues in particular. The Quilters School made me aware of the Little Wandle Foundations for Language Interaction Techniques. These cards were placed on tables within the early years classrooms as an aid memoir for adults when interacting with the children about the activities. A few of our schools use the Little Wandle phonics scheme, so this may be something you'd be interested in implementing in your own classrooms. To end, we are going to complete boxes 6 and 7 of your reflection card. Box 6 includes any information that you want to remember from today's session and commit to delivering one Oracy activity from those shared today that you will use next week and then feed back on in your next in-school staff meeting. It may be worth organising for each member of your year group or department to trial a different activity. Pause the recording here to note this down. Thank you for participating in today's session. If you would like a copy of the slides from today, we are more than happy for your in-school facilitator to share these with you. If you want to share any successes from your school, please let me know by speaking to your in-school facilitator, who will be able to pass on my contact details. If you're interested in the work that any of the schools are doing, again, feel free to reach out to me and I'll put you in contact. Thank you for your time today.